So, here's a wild question. Can AI actually read your mind? I don't just mean understand your words, I mean get what you're thinking and feeling. It sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But it's not. And the real scientific answer? Well, it's way more surprising than you think. Let's dive in. Okay, so what are we really asking here? It all boils down to this. Can a machine grasp that you have your own mind, your own private world of thoughts, beliefs, and goals that are totally separate from everything it knows? This is a huge deal because it's the very foundation of how we, as people, connect with each other. Yeah, and there's a name for this superpower. Psychologists call it theory of mind. It's basically the bedrock of our entire social world. It's how you know a surprise party is going to work, or why you can tell a joke to one friend and they'll crack up, but with another, it'll just be crickets. You're literally creating a little model of their mind in your head. And for pretty much all of human history, we thought only we could do this. So, the whole story of whether AI has cracked this code is really a tale of two rival studies. It's a fantastic scientific back and forth. On one side, we've got a 2024 paper from Stanford that seemed to show this massive, unbelievable breakthrough. And then on the other side, a 2025 paper from Harvard that basically asks, hold on a second, is this all just a really clever magic trick? All right, let's start with that big breakthrough. For decades, getting an AI to have theory of mind was, a far-off dream. And then, all of a sudden, something totally changed. Now, the go-to method for testing this, especially in little kids, is something called a false belief test. It's a really smart way to check if someone gets that another person can believe something that's, well, just plain wrong. So the big question for scientists was obvious. Could the latest, most powerful AIs actually pass this classic human test? Here's a great example right from that Stanford study. Imagine a bag that says chocolate on the label, but surprise, it's actually full of popcorn. Now, a person named Sam walks in. Sam has not seen what's inside. They've only read the label. So the question for the AI is, what does Sam believe is in the bag? Right, we know it's popcorn. But for the AI to pass the test, it has to figure out that Sam is holding a false belief. It needs to say Sam thinks it's chocolate. And what happened next was, honestly, pretty astounding. The researchers threw this test at a bunch of AI models, and you can see it right here. Older models, they completely bombed it, 0%. A typical 3-year-old kid gets it right about 20% of the time, but GPT-4, it nailed the answer an incredible 75% of the time. And look, that 75%, that number is a really big deal. It's not just a good score on a test. It's the same performance you'd get from an average 6-year-old child. To the folks who study this stuff, this was absolutely jaw-dropping. It looked for all the world like a machine was starting to learn a core human skill. So how on earth did this happen? Well, the Stanford team had a really wild idea. They said, look, nobody programmed this into the AI. They thought this ability might have just emerged on its own. The theory goes that as these models got ridiculously good at just predicting the next word in a sentence, they accidentally started building an internal model of the human minds that produce all that language. Crazy, right? It was a huge conclusion. But almost right away, another group of researchers over at Harvard started raising their hands and asking a really important question. Okay, but is this real understanding, or is the AI just a master illusionist? And this, right here, is the heart of the whole debate. When an AI spits out the right answer, is it actually thinking its way through the problem like a person would? Or has it just found some clever shortcut to the right answer without really understanding anything at all? This is where the Harvard paper gives us a totally new lens to see this through. They say we're getting two very different things mixed up. There's behavior matching, that's just, giving the right answer. But then there's computation matching, which means using the same process, the same kind of thinking to get to that answer. And here's the kicker, just because the behavior looks the same doesn't mean the thinking behind it is the same. Let me give you a great analogy. You've probably heard of the mirror test, right? The one for self-awareness. An animal sees a dot on its forehead in the mirror and touches its own head. Boom, it recognizes itself. But what if you programmed a robot with one simple line of code? If you see a red dot in the mirror, then touch your forehead. The robot's behavior is perfect. It passes the test every time. But is it self-aware? No way. It's just following an instruction. Or, hey, think about a simple calculator. When you punch in 8 times 7, does it understand what multiplication even is? Of course not. It's just running an algorithm, or maybe even looking up the answer in a pre-made table. It gives you the right behavior, the number 56, but the way it gets there, the computation, is completely different from how you learned multiplication in school. And that's the exact problem we have when we try to test these AIs. And look, this isn't just some boring academic debate. This distinction is so important because it shows just how easily we can be fooled by AI tests and how we can end up with a totally wrong idea of what these things can actually do. So this creates two huge traps when we're testing AI. First, we can totally overestimate what it can do if it's just using a sneaky shortcut to get the right answer. But, and this is just as important, we can also underestimate it if our test is accidentally broken, making the AI fail for a reason that has nothing to do with what we thought we were testing. Okay, let's make this real. Here's a great example of overestimation. Imagine a story. Someone puts a fork in the kitchen and leaves the room. Then another person secretly moves the fork to the bedroom. Question for the AI. Where will the first person look for the fork? The AI might correctly say the kitchen. But why? Is it because it's tracking that person's false belief? Or is it just because it's analyzed trillions of words and knows that fork and... And what about underestimation? Well, the researchers did a clever tweak to that popcorn test. This time, they made the bag transparent. Now, you and I know that if you can literally see the popcorn, the chocolate label doesn't matter anymore. But the AI, it failed. It still said the person would believe it's chocolate. And why did it fail? It wasn't because it lacked theory of mind. It was because the AI didn't really get the physical concept of transparency. The test was accidentally measuring something entirely. So where does all this leave us? It might feel a little messy, right? But this whole debate is actually a massive leap forward. It gives every single one of us a much smarter, more sophisticated way to think about AI. Because this brings us to the real key. The whole game has changed. We're moving past the simple question of if an AI can pass a test. Now we're asking the much more important and much tougher question. How is it passing? So I want to give you a new toolkit for thinking about AI. The next time you see some crazy headline about an AI becoming sentient or conscious, just take a breath. Ask yourself, is this AI just matching the behavior we expect to see? Or is there any real proof that it's matching the thought process behind it? And just remember, a lot of the time the answer isn't some huge leap in consciousness, it's just a clever statistical shortcut. So let's go back to our big question. Can AI read your mind? As you can see now, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. The real breakthrough in this whole story isn't that the AI passed a test. It's that our understanding has gotten so much deeper. We're finally starting to grasp all the different ways a machine can seem to know something. And that's really the bottom line here. For years, the big race in AI was just about building bigger and more powerful models. But now, the new frontier, the next great challenge, isn't just about making AI smarter. It's about building the science to actually understand how it thinks.